definitely know your way around Michigan though, with the smallmouth and the clear lakes.
And he's like working it along the bottom, and he's like, I'm gonna hide it up. There's like a one boulder, and he's like, I'm gonna pull it up next to the boulder and pretend it's hiding behind the boulder. So he brings the 6-inch goby right in the crevice of the boulder. The smallmouth stops, and it actually takes the opposite path around the boulder from the goby, just so it can ambush it and surprise it on the backside of the rock.
That goes to show like how important it is when you're fishing for those bigger trophy size fish that you're making it as lifelike as possible.
Like removing the unnatural aspects that the fish either get pressured into, or just like when they have the most like perfect vision that they could possibly imagine. One of the first testing sessions, one of my buddies caught like a 30-pound bag. I fully believe there's a 10-pound smallmouth swimming around it.
All right, what is going on? We are finally sitting down with JP here. What's going on? Thanks for being here, dude.
Hey man, thanks for having me on. This is great.
We've been trying to do it for a little bit, but both busy guys, so I'm glad we could finally sit down and get this going here. I know you got a little trip coming up.
Yeah, I think we've kind of part of missing out of doing this. We've kind of been alternating weekends. Of I got a trip this weekend, you got a trip next weekend. I'm on the water, you're on the water, back and forth. So great
Right.
to finally do this.
Yeah.
I'm headed up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan this weekend and for the following week.
Nice.
A little bit of a bucket list trip, like something in particular I've been trying to do for a couple years, and my schedule and the weather. Well, actually, not the weather. It's going to rain the whole damn
Is
time,
it
but
really?
at least my work schedule permits me to actually go do this. So, fingers crossed on my little musky adventure.
Nice. So you're chasing the big ones there. We'll get into that here too,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
towards the end of the or into the podcast, talk about that new musky bait that you have that you've been working on. So I'm excited to see that and what your ideas are and where
That's
that's
fun.
going to progress to. But all right, so we'll do a little intro. So those of you that don't know JP, I'll kind of give you a little rundown real quick. So he is a Michigan native. He's one of the most relentless innovators I know in the fishing community. Always I
Thank you.
always something I've noticed is you're never satisfied. I mean, I think you could attest to that.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm a great businessman or marketer, but I like making new stuff, and then that's the part I love is just pumping out new ideas and testing stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's where it resonates with everybody too, is they know you're not doing it for the money. You're not just chasing fame. You're actually doing this to make baits that you want to fish, which I love. So JP is the founder and owner of Hatch Match Baits. He listens to feedback, like I said, pushes prototypes, tweaks designs, always chasing perfect action, weight, and durability are the three things I've noticed you're all about. A mechanical engineer by trade for one of the country's top global aerospace and defense companies. Many people might not know that. Just wanted to throw that in there. Graduate from University of Michigan. You take your technical precision and you kind of marry it with your angling skill, and I think that's where you kind of excel in how you've come to grow so quickly. So we'll get into kind of how you build the baits, what your failures have taught you, and then how you kind of scale without compromising quality and get a little behind the scenes look. I see you're in your workshop there, so I'm excited about that.
Yeah, it's kind of a workshop. This is one wing of my apartment that is far too small for what I'm attempting to do. So this is both my home office for actual work and also my like storage unit, tomb, junk room full of, and you can't even
Right.
see behind the desk.
Hey, whatever works for you. I see all your machines back there, and you were just fixing one to get something running so it would run overnight, which you never stop. I wanted to ask you, like, when do you sleep? Do you sleep?
Yeah, honestly, I mean it's like I love testing stuff, but I'm not great at like production volume, like pouring the actual stuff. So like I'm constantly tweaking and new ideas and stuff. But I'm you could say the company's grown, but it's not like I'm pumping out like 100 bajillion baits. It's kind of new ideas without so much like a huge boom of the company or whatever.
I mean, you've had a lot more growth in. I mean, it's been a little bit over a year. Has it been a full year yet,
Just
or
about,
no?
yeah,
Just
little
about.
over.
Yeah, I remember I first saw your stuff on like an Instagram ad, And then we started talking from that, and we were both from Michigan, started talking about, fishing the bigger baits. And you hadn't even had the Godzilla out yet. You were just doing the smaller ones at that point. And you were working on the prototype, which I
Yeah.
have one here. I know you always say when you see the one I have, you're like, it makes you cringe
Oh,
to
it's
look
yeah, it's
at
tough
it.
to look at.
But here, let's give the people a look real quick. So here is
I don't
that
hate the
bait.
gill accents. I do like that part.
Yeah, so you did almost did you oh, you like painted it, but there's like a little bit of stuff sticking out there. But yeah, I mean, I notice a lot of difference with the tail here too, but
Yeah, some of the
um
proportions have changed a little bit.
it has definitely changed from these two right here. But just to give you guys a quick little look, but we'll get into that more. Yeah, so I wanted to ask you, what is your first fishing memory? Like, just so people get to know you a little bit, like just right off the dome, first fishing memory, what comes to mind?
Yeah, so I have to come clean. My wife will kill me if I don't give the caveat that I'm not actually a native Michigan person. My family's all from there, and then I was born and grew up in California for a period of time, and then I lived in Michigan for like kind of for parts of the year, and then I went all for college and lived there throughout then, and then a year or two after college, and then now I'm down in the DMV area, and we might move back, but who knows? But going along with that, my first fishing memory is probably like my dad taking me on one of his like work trip charters, just like a corporate outing where they would like rent like a Mexico boat down in like Baja California, where they're just like
Okay.
it's a tow. I mean, they don't have a clue what they're doing, but
Yeah.
it's just like coolers and trolling for tuna. But
Right.
just seeing some of those crazy animals coming out of the water like that really got me hooked.
I notice you do like a lot of salt fishing too, being over on the East Coast there.
Hmm.
So you
Yeah, really
still
getting
have
into
that.
that recently.
Yeah, you still have that salt that you can get into, and I did see that. So you were from, like, the Pasadena area is
Yep.
what it was? Yeah.
Yep.
So I saw that when I was doing a little bit of my digging. I know we've been friends for a little bit now, but I didn't know your full background. Yeah, that's pretty cool. You definitely know your way around Michigan though, with the smallmouth and the clear lakes, and that's kind of what drove you into Hatch Match Baits, correct? If you want to talk
Yeah,
a
and
little bit
and
about
that's
that.
far and away like my passion and my favorite place to fish. I would go up there all the time to visit family as a kid. We'd spend most of the summer up in the northern part of the state, and most of my family either lived in the west side or they were in Saginaw. My dad grew up in Saginaw, and a lot of our cousins and stuff were still there. So between like Spring Lake up to a little north of Traverse, like that's where most of our family's from. So that's what I when I personally like, I was taken out on other fishing boats to California, but even as a kid, I was, mostly into sports and didn't have enough time to just go out fishing myself. So my real like formative angling experience is doing it myself. That's all Midwest area, northern Michigan, and those smallmouth in particular. But I mean, I love everything about those lakes. I always say
Yeah,
like the Great Lakes those are the only places in the country I'd live that's not coastal, just because it's not coastal, but it's its own ocean. Like I
right.
just love like the explorative aspect and like the big water and like the possibility of tangling with species like you're not even targeting on accident. Like
Yeah.
you'll just be out fishing for smallmouth somewhere in the bay and you're throwing a jerk bait and then boom, you've got like a 15-pound king salmon on and it's like peeling drag and you're just all kinds of crazy
Right.
stuff will happen.
Yeah, it's for those of you that haven't been to the Great Lakes before, it literally is. You feel like you're in an ocean. I mean, you go out on one of the Great Lakes and start getting out a couple miles, you don't see land anymore. It's like you're in it, and it can get scary out there. I know we were just talking about me battling the wind when I went up there with Dylan a few weeks ago to the bay, and yeah, it's a whole nother animal. It's not just like fishing another inland lake. So we are definitely blessed to have that fishery here. But so yeah, I wanted to ask you. So like the start of Hatch Match, what you just woke up one day and you're like, these other baits are not cutting it for me. I need to do
Kinda, yeah,
something different.
more or less. I think especially in some of the most how do I explain this? I think the Great Lakes are very much. I mean, there's some other like the Great Lakes are really the best example of it, but there's like a whole category of glacial lakes that are like Most of the lakes in the southern part of the country are, they're either natural lowland flooded reservoirs or they're highland, like big valley flooded reservoirs. So you get a lot of like, stark, crazy kinds of cover, like submerged trees or like stark rock formations and crazy stuff. And the glacial lakes are defined by the glaciers literally just dragged over this giant area. So these lakes are really, rather than having a bunch of crazy terrain and drop offs and stuff, it's just like a big bowl. And they can get
Hmm.
quite deep, but like um, they function a lot differently than most of the other lakes in the country. And especially, the further away you get from some of the river outflows or the really colder water, like pushing up towards the inflows of Lake Superior and stuff like that. Um, it's really unique because it's some of the clearest water you can ever see anywhere in the world. Like it rivals or surpasses stuff like the Caribbean or some other crazy videos you'll see of all over the world. But you can see if you can fish like a Ned rig, and you can, if there's no wind, you can see that Ned rig on the bottom of the lake, 50 feet below your boat. And if the sun is at the right angle, you can sight fish like 50 yards away, and you can cast to them. And more than that, like they can see you. Um, and I've noticed, or at least it's my personal belief, that like light line makes a significant difference. Being able to remove downsize line, that is, it doesn't, not necessarily the bait, but
Hmm.
just like removing the unnatural aspects that the fish either get pressured into, or just like when they have the most like perfect vision that they could possibly imagine. Um, like every little detail matters a lot to me. So I've fished up there for years in areas that I know have just truly giant fish. I fully believe there's a 10-pound smallmouth swimming around in Lake Michigan somewhere, and someone's gonna. It'll probably be some 8-year-old with a worm and a bobber, but
Right.
hopefully, I hope they appreciate it whenever they catch it. But I mean,
Yeah.
there's nines most years. Someone will catch a nine, and that'll kind of ping around social media and be real newsworthy. And eights are that's my personal goal, or my current goal is an eight. Um, but there's just incredible caliber fish up there, and there's certain baits, like I don't want to rag too much on it because it's caught me a lot of great fish, but something like the dark sleeper is, it's both famous and infamous. It's an incredible bait, and it gets bit really well, and it kind of provides something that there's a lot of imitators now, that it was very unique at the time, and I felt like it was just missing a couple elements that kind of held it back in the Great Lakes specifically. And durability issues aside, like plastisol is plastisol, and it might survive 3 fish, it might survive 0 fish because you're rubbing it on the bottom of sharp rocks, and like you've just sliced through the nose just rubbing it on muscles. But even just like cost and durability aside, what had really been frustrating me about the dark sleeper is that it's really intended for heavier tackle than I wanted to fish. So like if you're trying to throw that thing anything less than 12 or 14-pound line,
I'll throw it
it's
on
a
15 when I was
true.
doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, 12 is, I mean, I've truly gone as low as I possibly can. Like 12 is the absolute minimum that I can tie, the strongest knots I can possibly do. Like I'm tying a double San Diego jam to the hook, and then FG knots, and like the way it's built is more of like a grass bait for largemouth stuff. And the gauge of the hook wire is pretty comparable to like a common flipping jig. Talked to a number of megabass reps, and I was like, would you guys please just put out a light wire hook version? And they were like, I understand your pain. Could if we would, or what could be like a finesse swim bait for these really picky clear water smallmouth is you're forced much to fish it much more like a frog almost. Like you have to
Mhm.
slam the crap out of these fish. And I was
Yeah.
like, all right, well, if
I
you're not gonna
will
do it, then
say,
screw it. I'm gonna do it. And I'm
yeah,
just
I have caught a ton of fish on Megabass stuff, and I love the company. But all of your points are very valid, and I agree 100%. It's built almost more like a flipping bait, like fishing it like a Texas rig, like jamming it under docks and stuff. Not exactly what we need in the Great Lakes. Granted, there
mhm,
has been some giant fish caught on those baits.
no doubt, yeah.
Um, I know guys that have caught, yeah, high nines out of the east side. I won't name any spots, but on that bait. But yeah, when I saw you were coming out with this, I was like, this is what I need, just because I fished like you that bait a ton living here in Michigan. I probably bought it when it first came out. Like I don't even remember when it was. Maybe like
Yeah.
2015 or somewhere 2016, somewhere around there. And yeah, so when I saw yours, I was like, this is what I need because that was kind of my trajectory into like swim baits. I started with a dark sleeper, then moved up to like a mag draft, and then moved up to the bigger baits. So yeah, when I know I told you this last year when you started making those, I was like, this hits home. If you can
Yeah.
perfect this, this is something I'm very interested in. So
Before I even had any intent of selling them, I was like, this is just a personal project. I want these for myself, and I know a couple buddies will use them, and we just started fishing them. And I think uh, one of the first testing sessions, one of my buddies caught like a 30-pound bag throwing it. And he's like, oh, it's just this is awesome. Like I can drop to 8-pound line. I'm bouncing it through and around some big logs down there, and it's doing what the old one did, but I can actually like land these fish quickly and like or I can land them without having to upsize the lines. Like I'm getting bites and then I'm getting them out. So like it proved itself pretty quickly, and I was like, all right, well I've got some confidence now that like I kind of skipped over the whole silicone aspect, honestly. But
yeah,
a lot of people don't fully understand that like silicone and plastisol are like two totally separate chemical
yeah,
categories, and
it's
they don't.
completely different.
Yeah, so like you grab it, it's not Z-mat. Like so elastomers, they'll pull indefinitely, but they're going to elongate.
I
Um,
mean, it's pretty close though.
it's it's
Like,
closer to elastomer
yeah,
than soft plastic, and
yeah,
more importantly to me, this might get pretty detailed, but I'll just do the deep dive real quick. It's like much stronger in tear strength. So like with a soft plastic, even if it's not ripping on the tail, like you'll still eventually get teeth marks in the back of it, and like eventually that'll rip out the jig head or whatever, or you'll scuff up the belly to the point that like that gets sliced through by muscles. So like this, you can run like a razor blade through it and it doesn't cut. Um, but on top of that, so like you don't have the heat warping or kinking issues of plastisol or elastomer, and it doesn't have any chemical reaction whatsoever. So like my personal box, there's no clamshells, there's no division. I take as many baits as I can physically get, and I jam them into a Plano box, and I leave them there in a hot car, and then I pull them out on Saturday, and there's the tail is completely straight with no kinks whatsoever. So
yeah. Say,
that's
look,
really useful to me,
this is
just like the ease of use.
this is your loadout here. So you take all of these and then you just jam them in the box there. You can
I
see
might have
that
it down
there.
here. Let me have a look.
You have them set. But yeah, I mean, you can
Probably.
see just
They're
from this
just backed
picture
up.
how many you have in this box and all the different colorways that you have as well.
But I just pack them as thick as I can get them. These are like most of my natural Goby tones. I don't know if
Right.
I'm putting this whole thing in a suitcase or not, but basically they can all be twisted up in here, and they sit perfectly straight and no warping. So I love that aspect. But and the other thing for me, especially with the Goby baits in particular, is if you ever watch underwater videos of a Goby, they have a really interesting like movement pattern. So they're one of the few fish that doesn't have a swim bladder. So they're incapable of like naturally leveling and floating at a certain level in the water. So when they want to swim forward, they actually have to hydroplane, like because they naturally they sink. So when they have to swim slightly head up, and then when they sit on the bottom, they put their pec fins out and they sit with their heads slightly up and up tilted. So what that meant for me in making my baits, if I grab one,
A
um,
side note on that is
yeah,
I never knew that. And when you were making the first Godzilla Goby, and I don't know if you remember this, but you were sending me swim videos like over messages, and
hmm
I was like, well, could you get it to like swim down a little bit more? Because that's just what I'm used to with our normal fish around here,
yeah,
swimming down like on our inland lakes. And you're like, well, wait a second, that's not what they do. And
yeah. They got
so
their own
that just
funny little
goes to
behaviors.
show, yeah, kind of like your engineer background and your intelligence in just researching what these fish actually do in the wild. So I just wanted to note on that, but go ahead.
Well, it's part of the super. One of the things I credit to like me discovering or seeing stuff is just like when the water is so damn clear, it's hard not to pick up bits of information, and just like you just get to observe more behavior. It's like having I don't have forward facing personally, but it's 100,000 times better because you can see every possible little detail of what's going on. So I mean, I've like scuba dived or snorkeled in the Great Lakes when it's not, you know, freaking cold,
Yeah.
and you can kind of see that behavior and how they move around. There's also, I remember years ago, I came across a really cool, it's a Mike Iaconelli video where he talked about a tube modification that he would fish on St. Clair. And what he would say is that instead of buying like an actual tube jig head, he would take a bare jig hook and he would crimp a split shot on it backwards, like way towards the hook bend instead of towards the eye. And that would naturally rear weight it so that the
Okay.
head and the line tie would sit up a little bit more like a goby. So
Oh
that's
wow.
something that like I kind of stored away, and then I knew to look for that behavior, and then because I saw it myself in the water, and I was like, okay, well that's an element that I need to have in my baits. And again, before I made these, Z-Man came out with their Gobius, and I was like, amazing. It's going to be durable. The hook is a little lighter. I can't wait for this. And then I got it on the water, and I realized because their material floats, what happens is like the way the center of mass works out is like so that the body floats, which adds more buoyancy. So to get the same, half ounce or 3/4 ounce bait, they're adding more lead to compensate for that, and that lead is forward weighted. So the way that the Gobius dives, it just goes head first, or like it doesn't plane and glide quite as much, and then when it gets to the bottom, that tail literally has buoyancy, so it goes up, and the head goes down, and it not only doesn't sit head up like a goby, it actually sits head down. So when I went out and started testing these things, I was like, well, that's not great. And then I kind of experienced that in the fishing itself, where the gobius would get bit when I was swimming and actively moving it, and but I was not getting the same kind of bites that I would get. And I actually had two rods. I would alternate dark sleep or gobius. And the classic retrieve for me is like drag, hop, lift, and then pause. Then usually it's on the pause that you get smacked. And the gobius did not get hit when it was not moving, which was really just like that kind of sealed the deal for me, which base tells me that like
Yeah.
that dead stick posture is actually, I mean, it looks wrong and it is actually turning off some of these fish. So that was kind of like the last straw of like, all right, this isn't going to do it. I'm going to make my own, like try to get all these things I've noticed put into one package.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up because I guess I never really thought about the way it's sitting down there because I will say when maybe if I've caught 1,000 fish on the dark sleeper, 950 of them were dead sticking it. It wasn't moving. I do have one Gobius that I bought when it came out because I was curious too. And I fished it like one day, didn't get any bites, and kind of just tucked it back away. So that
So
makes
it's a
sense
weird,
now.
I do like it for kind of niche purposes where, the dark sleeper is a general purpose leaning towards colder water periods. That's when it does better for me, is that like dragging bite. But if you're trying to do something like traditionally like cracking a tube, like where you're aggressively snapping that thing off the bottom, the Gobius is awesome for that because it swims great, it dives real fast. Like if you're going for more of that reaction, like you're fishing that 3/4 ounce one in like maybe 8 or 10 foot of water and just snapping it fast. The Gobius is great for that, like a more
Yeah.
of a active summer, early fall fishing thing. But otherwise, like the slow drag is all, or used to be all dark sleeper for me, and now is all like that's kind of what mine are built for.
So moving from that bait into the bigger baits, because now it seems like
Hmm.
the Godzilla and then the Goliath is what you're coining or the term you're going with.
Yeah, working
Um,
name. Well,
yeah,
probably.
all right, we'll say working name Goliath. Um, those are like your main focus now, is what I want to say. So
I
kind of
think
how
so. I
did
mean, I
you go
have.
from that smaller profile up to the bigger one?
Yeah, so at the same time that I was, kind of cooking up the smaller one, or just over the course of my years of fishing, like I huge fan of the custom swim bait world. I don't know which way the camera's pointed. You can kind of see I've got
See him hanging there? Yeah.
this is stuff that's not in my box or in the car right now. So I've got more baits than I know what to do with. There are areas of my fisheries that like I can say confidently, like I know there's an 8 pounder, I know there's a 9 pounder, and it's going to be in some of these spots, or like I'll spook them and I'll see just preposterous size fish swim off, and I'm like, And I've been trying for years to, I believe that big baits get bigger bites, in not every single time, but like in a general trend. And I've been trying to find a way to make it work up on these Great Lakes smallmouth fisheries. And for years, I basically had no luck. Um, Not just no luck, like the only fish I could ever get on a glide bait or a swim bait over like 4 inches, they were always like the smallest fish, the dumbest fish, the most aggressive, starving, skinny fish that are just like willing to take a chance. And like you switch back to a little 3 inch bait, something a little more realistic, and boom, you're back into the 5 and 6 pounders. So I'd gone like I basically tried every damn glide bait I could get my hands on, tried a whole bunch of soft baits. I know they eat mostly gobies. I was looking for a goby bait in the market. And like I could get glide baits to work sometimes if it was like a low light condition combined with it always had to be a mass produced factory glide, like either the Depths 175 or the Spro Chad started working decently, but it had to be something ABS so it could have some translucence, because if it was just like
Hmm.
a total solid wall of resin color, like that was too unnatural for the fish.
And you were
Um,
dropping those down when you're fishing them, like fishing them low, or were you fishing them like subsurface?
Pretty high in the column. And I've got spots where the fish they'll sit pretty high off the bottom, and I know they're there, and you can actually stick a camera in the water and even see them sometimes.
Yeah.
I'd run realistic looking big baits right by their damn faces and no interest. And after a couple years of this, and like, I can only catch fish on little stuff, more natural stuff. I want, like, I mean, I spent a couple months like hunting around for like there were a couple old builders that made like soft plastic gobies, or like there was the Balog goby that was down in the Metro Detroit region, and that kind of went at us out of business or just faded out. I mean,
Yeah.
Claire people know about those. They were in a lot of the stores through, like 2010, maybe something like that. But they're kind of like a remnant of the past now. Um, and once I like realized that I'd like, all right, well, my process works. To my knowledge, like the way I make the baits is somewhat unique. I'm looking into patentability of like the process I use, because I think it's novel, and a lot of trial and error and like different technology stuff. I've kind of settled on something that gives me a lot of it's really powerful, and it's worked really well, and I think it's probably got uses outside of the fishing industry, honestly. So,
There's
but
that engineer brain going again.
yeah, maybe I'll sell it to some other company and have it off my hands, and that'll be the
Yeah.
actual moneymaker. Because God knows, I mean, this is a passion project. Like, there's just not a ridiculous amount of money in a handmade fishing lures. But so, like, I have the process works. I know I can design baits and make stuff that works, and I'm like, all right, time to make that big goby bait I always wanted. um, and it pretty much kind of just upsized the same body, like the same proportions and shape. And then I started tweaking it to like, all right, if I'm going to target giant smallmouth, what elements of a big swim bait do I actually want? And at least in my experience, and like it's my belief that the name smallmouth is accurate, because they don't have that ridiculous Hoover vacuum of a mouth like a largemouth, and they have a lot of trouble attacking big baits in one go, especially soft baits that only have a single hook. So, like, if you have a smallmouth, we'll go T-bone a glide bait. Like, yeah, it's got 6 points hanging off of it. You can catch a smallmouth on a depth 250 all day. But if you try to throw a 10-inch soft bait at a smallmouth, if there's only one hook point, there's a really high chance that even like a really fired up trophy fish is not going to actually swallow it in one go. Um, So between that and the fact that smallmouth are famous for jumping and throwing baits, they're definitely the more athletic of the two main bass species. I kind of settled on like, all right, I want a soft bait. It's a goby. It's got to be a bottom crawler, and I want it to be treble hooked. So I settled on here. This is one of the Godzillas. This is a 2.0, but it's everything about the bait is the same except for like one piece. Um, but this is a line through treble design. Line goes in the nose, comes out back here, treble attaches. There's exposed point for a fish to grab, and then the bait separates. They can shake all they want. The bait's out here, and you're not going to lose. I mean, it's not impossible to lose fish, but it's a lot harder when you're fighting them straight to a treble. Um, so I had that system down, and that worked pretty well on the first go. And then just through swim testing, I was like, well, I want this thing to work. Like, I know there's going to be fish following and interested in it, and I need to have a way to like keep it in place, move it really slow, still get that action. So that's when I started just cycling through tail designs. Um, and it's weird because, especially when you have a bottom crawler, the water flow that's going over the bait and like getting to the tail and manipulating the tail is actually interrupted by the bottom of whatever you're rubbing it over. Perfect timing bringing that in, yeah.
Oh, there, I can see it now. It was delayed on mine. But yeah, so you see it just kind of having that water run through it and still getting that tail to move while it's sitting on the bottom. Yeah.
And even when it's just water coming off, basically like when the belly is sitting on the ground too, like that is enough to make it move. So like you can drag it and you'll still get that same tail action. Um, and the big dip, so the very first prototype that you had over there with the thinner tail, the big
Hmm.
difference between those two is that this being wider just gives it more mass back here. And what that actually does is it allows it to kind of be like its own separate jiggly ball. So you can be dead sticking the bait and just by barely tapping the line, it won't move at all, but it'll be enough to vibrate the tail and have that move independently. So this will move by itself in current. This will move by itself with a tiny bit of really anything. So it's almost like a jig skirt. Like you get that tiny bit of like penduluming action
Yeah. Yeah.
and stuff.
Even
So this is like very much a dead stick presentation a lot of the time on top of being drag, hop, swim. My
like
best bites have
something I
come on the dead stick.
noticed when you sent me the next version is, yeah,
Hmm.
look at the tail there, the difference. It
Yeah.
folds all the way over and the other one kind of sticks up still. So yeah, you made this a lot more movable down here, and yeah,
So
definitely works.
with soft plastic, or especially with like a jig head design or soft plastic in general, the stiffer the material, the more durable it is. Um, and, like the softest, like a Senko rips extremely quickly. But silicone is just such a higher strength material, even at the softer durometers, that this is as soft as a Senko material, and it's still got that great durability. So I just realized, like, there's no jig head tearing at the bait internally. The bait is basically, I realized I can go even softer. I can make it have this really incredible soft material action, and actually, there's no durability cost whatsoever.
Yeah, and there's a reason why some people are probably wondering, well, why don't more people make baits out of silicone then if it's so
Oh,
good?
yeah, that's a great
I
question.
mean, it's cost, right?
It is, it's an order of magnitude more expensive just in terms of raw material. And then it also is chemically messy. It doesn't play nice with mass manufacturing injection molded techniques. So, like, if Berkeley wanted to make this, they couldn't just make a new mold and pump silicone into their injection molding machine. Like, they'll destroy the machine.
Hmm.
So it's kind of it's not used as much or hardly at all outside of a couple pioneers who did this before me, some other great companies. But it's mostly not done because it's a pain in the ass and it's expensive.
Hmm.
So it's kind of, I could take this, I have the CAD design, I have the digital file. I could send this over to a factory in China and I could have them pump out uh, soft plastic versions for 85 cents.
Hmm.
And I think that's both not why I started doing this. I think it's a performance downgrade, just straight up. Um, I don't like, kind of just as a personal philosophy, I don't love like the disposable nature of like all kinds of the. I mean, I guess even just in broader life, I don't like the planned obsolescence, disposable stuff. But I hate how much crap we just willingly toss into our lakes.
Hmm.
Um, I won't say it was front of mind when I designed it, but like silicone is, it's food grade. It's safe. It's biologically inert. Like you could eat this. A fish can eat it, and they're not being poisoned. You're not hurting your environment. There's just all kinds of benefits to, if you're willing to do the manual labor of hand pouring your baits. Silicone kicks ass, and that's part of why I don't exactly plan to like blow up the company through the roof and like get a bunch of investing and try to like upscale it because it really can't scale beyond like it's a handmade product and like that's always going
Yeah.
to have a ceiling on. I can't just tell the factory give me 20,000 of them. We got to fill the Walmart order. Like that's
Mhm.
going to happen.
And yeah, I mean, cost for somebody purchasing them as a consumer is obviously more than what a normal little goby bait would be.
uh, it's going to outlast other materials, and like it's cost per fish is a lot less if you're willing to put the money in up front.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I just wanted to make a note of that when people look at, for example, like your website or reach out to you to buy one and they see the price difference as opposed to like the big companies mass produce baits. I mean, you're getting something that is higher quality, it's handmade, hand poured by you. You go over all of the baits. I mean, the quality of handmade products, like just not your baits, but all of the swim bait community, you're paying a premium, but you're getting a premium product. So I wanted everybody to kind of see the difference of that silicone there as opposed to the plastisol and what goes into it, just from behind the scenes of design to, you know, shipping it out and getting it in the hands of the anglers. But
Yeah, there's other stuff. I've got buddies, or over the summer, I had a couple high school kids helping me, and like part of that is just I'm not trying to pay people minimum wage. Like I want this to be beneficial for everyone. I'm helping people in my community with, like I, at least personally, I would love to pay that extra difference. Like if I know that I'm supporting a company that does that, as opposed to like, I have my face on it. It's kind of my reputation as well. And like, I want to treat people well around me and support the guys that were helping me when they help.
honestly, too, when people are going to buy your baits or any baits in general, think about like what your time is worth, like for yourself, and then how much time like you as the builder put into the bait. Like I know if I was building the baits, like they would be priced at a premium too, because I value my time, as everybody that's watching this should value your time, because our time is limited. It's like the one thing we can't get enough of. So they're worth the price for sure. So before we go into like the bigger new stuff coming out,
Yeah.
let's talk about some of the catches that we've seen
Oh yeah.
on your baits. So you got a good
So
one.
yeah, so I think the coolest one for me,
I'll throw something up here. Let's see if you
yeah,
agree. So
this
this
is
was a good
Brady's
one.
fish. Is I should have sent you. Brady had a GoPro going for a nice cast to catch with it.
Did he?
Um, that was pretty fun. I think it was his first time using the bait, and he had never used a line through bait before.
Yeah.
So he's got the fish hooked, and the bait is about 5 feet away from the fish up the line, and he didn't really like conceptualize the concept that the bait will not be attached to the fish. So he saw the bait up at the side of the boat, and he started boat flipping that thing
Oh
with 5 extra
no.
feet of line out. And suddenly he gets way up here. He's like double over high sticked, and the fish is like still in the water. And he's like, it was so funny. It was one of the worst boat flips of all time. And he's like, I can't believe that rod didn't break. It was like way past 180 degrees, like tip to
Yeah.
butt of the rod. Really great advertisement for Cashin, I think.
Right.
My video. Which video do you have there? I forget.
I had your 7 pounder is what I had pulled up.
Oh, I thought it was on the. I didn't see it come up on the screen this time. Yeah.
Oh,
So
can you
over the
see this
course
right
of,
now?
I don't, but that's okay. If you got it on the stream, don't worry about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's a picture of your 7 pounder. You're holding it like a football because the thing is giant. What was it, 718 or something? Or
Yeah, just under 7.2. That one. I mean, that's obviously super gratifying for me. I believe that's. I'm going with that's my PB. I had another 7 pounder years back, but my scale was a lot lower quality, and now I'm 100% sure. So we've crossed the 7 mark. 8 is the next frontier. Um, I think one of the really fun ones catches that I got to see with it, for me at least. One of my really good friends from Troy, Michigan, went to college with him, and he was like a lifelong smallmouth angler in the Metro Detroit area. Yeah, shout out James. He helped me a ton
shout out
bouncing
James.
every time I. It's a good name. It's also my first name, but
Yeah, it is.
every time I had like like a roadblock or like just wanted to bounce ideas off of as I was testing these things or come up with them, I was always like fire off a text to James. Like half the time, just in typing to him, I'd end up working it out. But plenty of his feedback also made it into the final version. So he was super instrumental. So we had a fun, call it extended weekend trip. I took him on. I had a new boat last year, and we kind of broke it in up there together. But it was like the first or second day. I don't know. But the first day, like I try to time like kind of my big smallmouth trip pretty similarly every year, and it was a pretty cold winter, so like the patterns were a little bit delayed off of what I'm used to. So like I always, first day I always start fishing history, like check the old haunts. Rough day on the first day. Second day we get out to this flat and whole bunch of fish. We're doing pretty well, and like we were still just trying to find the fish, so I didn't really have the confidence yet to start chucking the big stuff. Um, and we've got fish all around the flat, and James picks up the 6-inch one, and he's like, you know what, time to use it. And he has like gets a quick first cast out there, and he's like, all right, for your first cast cursed gone, and he makes a second cast, and I had just finished, I caught a 5, and I put it back in the water. I took a little video, release video, and right as this fish swims away, and I mean I just weighed this one. I know this one is like 5 1/4. Another one that's like significantly bigger than that one kind of swims up just out of sight. Like I can see, like we're like, oh crap, that's like a 6 pushing 7,
Yeah.
um, and we're like, basically because I was releasing this other fish, I forgot to turn off the video, so I accidentally like I set the phone down in the boat and it's recorded this whole time. Um, and we're like, oh crap, cast it, like flip it out in front of it, and I'm like messing with the fish with little finesse stuff, and it starts going toward my little swim bait, and then like we kind of watch this fish like kind of get wind of this whole time. James has had the 6-inch goby in the water the other direction,
Hmm.
and the fish notices it and completely, we watched all of this happen where it turns off of my little bait, goes over towards the big one, and he starts like working it. He's like, it's following it, and he's like working it along the bottom, and he's like, I'm gonna hide it up. There's like a one boulder, and he's like, I'm gonna pull it up next to the boulder and pretend it's hiding behind the boulder. So he brings the 6-inch goby right in the crevice of the boulder. The smallmouth stops, and it actually takes the opposite path around the boulder from the goby, just so it can ambush it and surprise it on the backside of the rock. And then he's like just barely jiggling it, and then the fish, like we watch the whole ambush behavior come around the backside and fucking blast it, and he's like shrieking on the camera. He's like, apparently my drag was way too loose, and it's just like a screech of drag, and he's like, oh my god, no.
Yeah.
Anyway, this ended up being his PB that we sight fished the whole thing, watched it all happen, accidentally caught it on video, and that honestly might have been more fun than my own PB, like just seeing like how that worked out for him, and like he's
Yeah.
got more hours in the water than me for sure, and he really deserves it.
That goes to show like how important it is when you're fishing for those bigger trophy sized fish that you're making it as lifelike as possible. Like we said, there some kid could throw a worm out and catch a 8 or 9 pound smallmouth just by chance. But if you're doing it over long periods of time, trying to like refine your craft, you need to make the baits look as realistic as possible. And that's something
They
that,
slip up, they get dumb, but day in
yeah,
and day out, they're smarter than you give them credit for, and the little things do make quite a difference when you focus on, you know, realism, stealth, finding, fish that are in feeding environments. Like little things do add up. Like yes, they'll be dumb and they'll go crush a spinnerbait or chatterbait randomly, but most of the time it's like they're really well in tune with that ultra clear water in their environment, and they're just not fooled by things that aren't fooling. Like it's just has to be at
yeah.
least somewhat believable to them. So that's, at least
Was
that's my philosophy, my experience. Like,
Was that the day where you caught like 4 6s? Or is that a
oh yeah,
different
we ended
day?
up with like 31 and change on the day.
Yeah, I remember your post about that. You caught like 4 6+ pounders. Yeah, that's crazy. Obviously, like moving into the tournament angler side of things, I know you
Yeah,
brought up Brady. You have some pros using your stuff now and winning on them. So that's something Congrats on that. That's awesome.
That was yeah, that was really exciting too. So I think I'd say my first big like I don't know, blow up is the right word, but like we had that really awesome pre-spawn spring. I mean, pre-spawn in northern Michigan's always going to be sick, but we did. It was exciting. We did particularly well, and like the baits really proved themselves. So that kind of like gave us some credibility. And then going into kind of that summer of like smallmouth slate of kind of the professional tournament series, couple of pros were like would love to give this stuff a run. The one that really kind of popped for me at least was the NPFL tournament up at the St. Lawrence River.
Hmm.
They had a scopeless tournament, and guys were just looking for different ways to present to big fish up shallow or attract the bigger fish in these flats. And pair of guys, actually trio of them. Justin Kimmel was the one who like kind of first latched onto the baits and picked up a few, and then he kind of forwarded those to both Pat Walters and Drew Cook were like two of the first guys to really get on board with it, and they fished them a whole bunch. They were roommates, so they were kind of like sharing tips on what was working and alternating baits and stuff. But Pat was in second on the first day. He had like 27-pound bag, and they've got all their actual like pay their income sponsors. So he did me a real nice solid like mentioning my stuff by name in a little post
In
like
that news
weigh in
article I
interview.
saw.
Yeah, so that he didn't
Yeah.
have to do that, and that was really nice way of him to kind of shout me out. And then Drew Cook ended up winning the whole damn thing. So Pat said he was using them. Drew supposedly also using them. Pat finished in
Yeah.
fourth, so it was like pair of top five finishes on a pretty famous fishery major event. And then they spread a little bit from there. I think I had 8 or 12 guys with them at the Elite Series on St. Clair back in August or July.
Yeah.
I don't think
Uh,
it ended up being a really big minnow tournament. I don't know that many of them made them out of the bag, but there were
yeah.
a number of guys that were at least like want to have them in the boat if it becomes a thing. So that was cool, just meeting a couple more faces and people being, I'm sure hopefully they'll try to find a way to work them into their arsenal next year.
It was pretty windy then too. I know that's the same weekend they were at Saginaw as well with
Yeah.
MLF. But I'm curious, just for my own
Mhm.
curiosity, when it's windy like that, how are you fishing? Like, say your 5 inch.
Say, where the fish are, and it's windy. To me, wind is that sucks because you can't sight fish, and it
Hmm.
makes like precise finesse presentation is a little more difficult. But at the same time, um, it also goes a long way to actually kind of mitigating some of the difficulties of fishing in clear water because it's breaking up that surface and
Hmm.
scattering a whole bunch of light. Um, it's actually kind of reducing the visibility down there. It's increasing the noise level subsurface. So generally, the fish almost feel like they have a little more cover around them, and they're more free to move around. They're less if they're up shallow, they're more willing to roam. They're less skittish. They're less easily spooked. Um, because it's a reduction in visibility, I tend toward a little bit faster moving stuff and a little bit more bold contrasting colors. So if it's slick calm and I'm fishing a 8 or 10 foot flat, I might be going with like, a supernatural like blend into the sand color and really working it slow. And if it's howling wind, I'll probably up my weight so I can work it a little more erratically and go to, I mean, even a jet black in clear water. There's like I think I've done this spiel before, but gobies naturally have a really wide range of just genetic variation in their color from almost like clear sandy to actually just ridiculously dark jet black. And I don't think I've yet to see a pattern of like fish matching their environment. I think they're just randomly, just the colors are just totally randomly assorted. Like even if you're fishing a mostly sandy fishery, there could be dark jet black ones. If you're in dirty water, there could still be light sandy ones. So I almost just like, I don't even try to match whatever gobies I see in the water. I just think about how is this color like contrasting and playing off of the light conditions and like how visible do I want it to be down at the bottom. So Wind to me is like I want to be more bold, more obnoxious, more aggressive, or like at least with like what I can control of those factors. With like if I'm fishing the same bait, I mean, wind is also a great time to just like whip out something flashy like a spinner bait and just start covering water, especially if you don't know where the fish are.
So I popped up on the screen here because you were talking about gobies. Can you see that or no?
I can't, but I'm sure it's
No.
there.
Okay. So it's one of the pictures. You're holding the goby in one
Oh
hand,
yeah,
like a real
awesome
goby,
photo.
and your goby. So while you're talking about kind of what gobies look like, I wanted to show this. It shows how accurate your baits are when you're putting it right next to the goby. And I believe that's your 6-inch goby. Do you
Mm-hmm.
remember? Was it your
Yeah,
six
it's a
inch?
6. Yep.
Yeah, so there's gobies that big, and that thing's even meatier than your your Godzilla goby when it's sitting in your hand there. So
I
that's
think
why.
the biggest I've ever seen was an 8-inch goby, and the biggest I've had a bass cough up was like a just over 7. You know, the gobies are so heavily predated by every single game fish in the Great Lakes that like I think in other environments they do get to bigger sizes, but like they just don't they don't survive long enough. Like everything is out to eat them all the time, and there's not a lot of places to hide. So
Yeah, let's talk about your new stuff
yeah,
coming out. You got a few things.
I do. So the one, as much as I love the line through design, and I truly believe this is the best iteration of this for smallmouth fishing, particularly the 6-inch size. Like I think this is probably the best way to consistently hook and land big smallmouth on a large soft bait. The baits come unweighted, and you do not want to fish them unweighted. They come with a little chunk of lead that's sized to the bait, and there is below the line through hole in the mouth of the bait, there is a cavity to shove the lead in there. Um, and it's just like a tension fit. It squeezes itself in there, stays in real well. But the cool thing about that is that you can keep this tight on your rod, and you can easily, with just pliers, switch from the half ounce that's in the package, drop it down to a quarter ounce. You can upsize to like a 3/4 ounce tungsten flipping weight, and you can fish a whole bunch of different water columns without even retying, without changing baits, without buying multiple baits. So I mean, that's another thing about this is a platform more than it is a single bait for a single purpose. This can be fished from 0 to 50 feet. Actually, out past if you do like a free rig, there's a cool tip for people. If you put a lightweight in here, put a big heavy sliding weight on the line or a Carolina rig even, you can get that really incredible slow gliding, falling pendulum action. The tail kicks the whole time, but you can have the heavy weight drag it all the way to the bottom, so you can sink that sucker down real deep and still get that best lightweighted action. Um, that being said, the part of the best part about having the weight in there is like so the weight's rear weighted, it sits head up a little bit, and as it swims, because this is all soft, uh, it does an incredible job of like bouncing off of rocks, or if it comes to like a crevice between rocks, the head will kind of squeeze its way through. Like it's really hard to snag this on hardcover. Um, even wood, like as long as it's bigger chunk wood, like logs, it naturally like the fins are kickstands. The weight is balanced. It's a wide profile. It doesn't want to roll, and it doesn't want to get wedged anywhere. So that being said, because it's an exposed treble, it really sucks a lot with grass and small brush, small things that will snag an open hook. So for a long time, people have been pestering me to do a weedless version, which that's on the horizon. That is coming very soon. Similar to the little one, with a couple differences. It's got the slow moving, subtle, awesome. My favorite thing about that Godzilla is the tail.
That's your 7-inch, correct?
Yeah, so there's
Because you're gonna do a
the line.
5 and a 7 jig
Yeah,
hook now.
yep. So the line through comes in. Initially it was a 6, and like that's about as big as I'm comfortable going for smallmouth. If I'm gonna fish a weedless for smallmouth, I want it to be that 5-inch package, just because you need them to actually get all the way up to the hook.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a little bit more slurpable for smallmouth. But largemouth have no problem with a bigger bait, and I was like, I could make a weedless six, but the six already exists. This is targeted towards bigger largemouth anyway, um, and I'm upsizing it. So these will be the two. They both have the same actions as their line through counterparts. Um, and what I've actually been fussing a lot with, that the reason I haven't brought it out yet, is like I want the weed guard to be perfect, and the way
Hmm.
the hook is in there. So um, what these actually do is, on top of just having the dorsal weed guard, the hook is actually very low to the body, and that's because the rest of the bait is actually hollow, like a frog. So it's a mix of fin weed guard with hollow body. So this is still quite stiff. This protects you from all kinds of weeds and brush. And then as soon as you clamp down, there's all that hook exposed, ready to bury it. Go
Does
on.
that
Sorry, I
swim
missed what you said.
similar to the 5-inch line through then? Because the 5-inch line through doesn't have that
So
hollow.
the hollow part in the back has almost no impact on. I mean, I could just say, I don't want to say zero because it does something, but it's an unnoticeable impact on the way it swims. The only
Okay.
difference in the swim is that this is a fixed weight. It's molded onto the jig head as opposed to the interchangeable belly chamber. So you can actually modify the way that the line throughs swim a little bit. Like, yeah, you're changing the sink rate, yes, but you're also changing, the swim depth and kind of the sinking profile. Like if you go really heavy, it's going to sink a little bit more, like 45, and
Hmm.
swim like that. But if you go like an eighth ounce in this thing, it's almost at like a 20, dude. Like it's almost swimming forward and down. Like it
Okay.
really glides, and it'll kick on the fall too. There will be different sink rates of this, but you can't tweak it quite as much without that same weight chamber. So it's just trade-offs. I mean, it does something different, but the tail is the same. The body shape is the same. The fins are slightly different. They're actually stiffened a little bit more. They're a little bit more
Okay.
rigid on the sides, so it's just a little bit of extra rolling protection as you're coming up and over types of cover. Um, so it's just this is something I would skip into a laydown, and this is very much not. I mean, I have. It's just
Yeah. Just because you
because
didn't
I.
have the version you're working on, though.
Yep. Yeah, like, and I can do risky things with my own baits because I've got a box of them, and I wouldn't recommend that people go throw this
Right.
into areas it's likely to snag itself. But also, like, doing dumb stuff with my own baits is kind of how I find out what they are and aren't good for. Like, I have to do
Yeah.
that, but would
Trial and
not.
error.
This is going to be the go-to for pretty much. Largemouth just do such a better job of inhaling stuff in general. I think I might actually prefer the jig hook in almost all scenarios for largemouth, unless
I
it's like
agree.
unless I'm really sure that it's going to be an open bottom and I want to get that slow dragging action. Um, something people have Somebody said this to me recently, and I'm like, I can't believe I didn't think of this sooner. But like, kind of the best way to describe what these do is it's just a unique profile of like a proven Huddleston. Like it's a
Mhm.
slow moving bait. It can do other things. You can swim it in the column and stuff, but like it's best used as like there's the profile on the ground. It's got a subtle action. It's realistic, convincing, um, and it just like brings a profile that hasn't been out on the market before, and or at least as of recently. Um, and I don't know why I didn't put this together, but until recently. But it's an incredible catfish profile. These have
Yeah,
really
so
caught on in the last couple weeks, or last month maybe. But I mean, just throwing the skirt in there, people have been all like, so much more interest from people all over the country outside of specific goby fisheries. This is kind of an evolving thing. It's I might even have to rename the bait just because it's called a goby, and like 50% of the people buying it want the catfish version, so I might have to
I
make
saw
it like.
some you put something up like a tomcat or something?
Yeah, so here in Virginia, they're kind of like little tiny catfish called mad toms. There's mad
Okay.
toms and there's stone cats, and they're both real similar types of small bottom hugging catfish breeds. And smallmouth eat the crap out of them in all kinds of rivers, from North Carolina to Maine, all kinds of places without gobies. Well, people ask me a lot, like, can you catch on these non-goby fisheries? And I think the best way to explain it is like even if you don't have actual gobies in the water, almost every environment has a kind of fish that will do what a goby does in the
Mm-hmm.
absence of gobies. So there's all kinds of uh, sculpin, darters. Those are both just incredibly common. Like any trout angler knows about sculpin and darters. Those are native in every part of the country. Log perch, sucker, juvenile catfish, small carp. Um, you got in the saltwater, you got mud minnows, croaker, spot, lizardfish. Even like there are obligate bottom hugging fish. It's almost like it's like its own. Just like almost every fishery has like its own version of a shad, like a pelagic schooling plankton eating bait fish. Like the idea of like a bottom forager is everywhere.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I
the
fish like in all the inland lakes here, and I catch largemouth and pike and
mhm.
everything on them, and I know for a fact there's no gobies in these lakes, but
Yeah,
like you
the
said, it looks like a prey fish.
I think guys that are a little more imaginative have been using them for some of the non-goby stuff already, but just by putting the whiskers in them and specifically calling out that hey, this is a catfish, people are
Mhm.
like, oh, duh, shit. I've seen bass spit up 9-inch bullheads before, but I mean, it truly is just. I mean, if you have a different one, if you already have a goby, you just take a either a sewing needle or even like an unrigged like an EWG hook and just thread the skirt right in.
Mhm.
It's crazy easy, and it's hard to say. Like do I truly believe it makes a difference in the
I
water?
mean,
It's another element of like dead stick action. That's a real thing.
yeah.
Like if you're going in cold water, like it's a jig skirt. It's moving. It's doing something. So we know jigs are real.
Yeah, I would say it's something that's been proven, yeah, through the fishing industry for decades is the jig skirt moving around, pulsing, or giving off some kind of secondary action that the
Hmm.
fish can pick up on for sure. We've
Yeah.
saw it at ICAST this last year, with
Right.
all the
Yeah.
dice baits just
Yeah. If you believe
constantly.
in dice.
Yeah. Which I think 99% of conventional anglers, that's like what they're doing right now is the dice stuff. So it's cool that we can take that and kind of do something a little bit different than what
Hmm.
everybody else is doing, but something that is actually a viable thing with like a catfish type profile like that. So let's check out. I want to see
Yeah.
those
So
big
this.
the big boys.
Yeah. So I will be using these this weekend. I outside of like 4 or 5 guys that have been testing them for me, these really aren't out in the public yet. This is a uh 10-inch goby catfish crawler, whatever you want to call it. I've been through a couple iterations trying to get it right. And I'm pretty happy with it where it's at now. And I've fished them a few times already with some really. Uh, I suck at landing musky. I'm really good at hooking them, and I'm really bad at getting them in the net. But at least the bait is responsible for getting the bites. So that was nice to see. I hooked a pair of, call them 45 plus musky on Lake St. Clair with these things, and kind of with another guy in the boat fishing your classic Medusa. So kind of as the control bait, he was up in the front of the boat. I was in the back, so he was kind of getting first crack at all the fish, and I was still managing to. I think I ended up with more bites on the day throwing this, and it's just something different. So many baits for muskie are like loud, bright, and high. Like they're high in the column. You're getting fish up, coming up, looking up at the baits over the weed beds, and in my personal experience, just fishing like the smaller goby stuff for great like smallmouth, I still end up with a ton of pike, ton of muskie.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's a big misconception that they're always focused and feeding up. I think they're masters of their environment. They'll eat up, they'll eat down. When they see something moving, they're like, I'm gonna go kill that. And there's
Mhm.
like dietary studies that like, yeah, pike in the Great Lakes will eat 15 or 20% of their diet is gobies. Um, but even more than just gobies, suckers are really what this is best for. Like those are bottom oriented, larger fish. Um, so in contrast to something burning over their heads, this is top hook, treble hook. This is meant to hop, scoot, drag, slow swim across the bottom. So I actually got bit multiple times on the fall throwing this around musky territory, and actually a couple times dead sticking. We had a follower come in, big one that turned off and kind of disappeared, and I just pitched this behind the boat and just let it sit for like 20 seconds, and like boom, picked up and like just head shaking, going
Yeah.
crazy. So I always kind of like I've experienced the fact that like muskie and pike will hunt downwards in the column much more than people give them credit for. A lot of actually the like in southern rivers like Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, where they have big muskie, one of their staples, they have these um, just like massive flipping jigs, like a just an oversized flipping jig with a
Yeah, they're
saltwater
like
hook,
monster
and
jigs or
yeah,
yeah.
crazy popular. They throw them right into laydowns, or like they'll sight fish with them, and like they'll see a fish up in the current somewhere, and they'll just drag it on the bottom. So like I think the idea of muskie feeding downwards is underutilized. Really hoping to put a couple nice fish on these this weekend. But what I'm actually doing with so it's difficult because these are so large, and on top of just the raw material cost, it's a lot of time to make each one. The hook itself, because it's so large, so like they're poured around a jig head so that musky people can use their traditional leaders and clips on here. Um, but these are actually designed as like a stinger hook. So this wire actually, can you see this?
Hmm.
There is a hidey hole. The wire totally disappears inside of the bait. And so for that reason, I mean, I keep saying musky, but like there's a lot of big bass guys interested in these too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
100%. Largemouth will hit that all day.
So because they're kind of it's a multi-species bait that has a lot of different rigging options, like starts as a jig hook. It's got the jig hook in there. As I modify them for the stinger harness, I'm snipping the jig hook out. I've recently got this is kind of a breakaway clip. I've got these working now. These are installed in the back of the bait. So and then there's like this is a wire harness. This is I'll show some other variants. This is a dual.
Oh yeah, that I saw you post
Yeah,
pictures of
so
that.
this is a
Okay.
more traditional dual treble musky rig. This has dual clips. This is a double wire. You can
So
still
you
do
have
other
it run
stuff.
that wire running down the center of the bait
Yeah,
just
so
like
this
the
this wire
single?
just has two tie-on points for two
Okay.
trebles, and they both have clips. They can both break away free floating hooks independently, and the whole wire can separate. So you're just fighting straight wire to fish, and the bait will be out here. Um, so really excited about these. At the same time, they're kind of a builder's worst nightmare
Mhm.
because on top of like being expensive to make, they're also, there's if I do 5 different colors, and then there's also multiple sync rates and multiple rigging options. So like you saw Stinger Harness 1, Stinger Harness 2, you can just go fish it with the jig hook that's in it.
Okay.
You can put a single stinger, if I can rig it quickly.
You could put a stinger on that jig hook coming off the
You can go
back.
stinger on the jig hook. You can snip the jig hook. You can go, this would be like big bass. I don't know if finesse is the right word, but like you've seen like the working class zero tyrant, like that's a way where they'll rig like a single small hook on a big bait just to like hide the
Mhm.
presence of the hook. So single head hook with this would be a braid stinger. That's totally hidden. You could also run this same system with the clip on the head. This is like single. I'm calling this like the headshot stinger. One
Nice.
there, almost like an opposite mag draft.
Yeah, so I mean
Any of
you have
those stingers can be run either in the clip where it's you know single point up, or you could also skin hook it and go 2 points up. So the bait builder's nightmare of all this is that just for doing a couple different colors, all those options multiply into like 70 variants.
right. Yeah.
And I can't possibly stock 70 versions. I don't think I can satisfy all the different people that want to try this and fish it in their own exact way. But what I'm thinking of doing with these is doing my first version of like a pre-order process. Um, because there's so many versions, um, I don't want to just like make all 70 and then just see which ones people want. So if I
Yeah.
actually, I'm gonna make like I'm gonna commit to I'm gonna make and ship 50 of these in the next 3 weeks. You put your name and deposit down, give me the exact option you want. I will, you know, pour, paint, melt, whatever, do all the modifications exactly to people's specs. And that, I mean, I'm kind of torn because like I've seen pre-orders go wrong in the past with like swim bait builders that like, oh, got the money, never mind, I guess I won't make the shit. Like, nice
Yeah.
knowing you. So I'm kind of torn of doing
Or it
that.
just taking so long, longer than, on
Yeah, so
schedule.
if I'm gonna do the pre-order, my plan is to commit up front to your bait will be in the mail within X number of weeks, and if it goes past that, you are entitled to your refund on the spot. And I'm going to cap the orders at a number that I know I can commit to and actually achieve within that time period. So that will help. And I think since these are, I fished it, I'm happy with it. If this was the final product, I'd be happy with it. But I'm also like, I'm not so far down the rabbit hole that I can't pivot and like incorporate new feedback. So I think for the first run, I'm going to kind of call it the beta test where like, this will be they'll be pre-ordered for pretty much like the lowest price you're ever going to see them for. Pretty much just like the cost of my time and materials and like not a whole like minimal profit. Just
Yeah.
get them out into the world. Get me because it's tough because like even if I were to musky fish, if I could get out every other weekend, that would be nice with my schedule. But even that's unrealistic. But in
Mhm.
musky are like you're getting so few fish interactions that it's tough to like really gather a whole lot of testing feedback in that time
Yeah,
frame.
yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking like I'm going to use this like limited pre-order process as like, people can get them at a discount and I can incorporate some of that feedback maybe into the next round. I'm still
So
working
have
on
you thought
that.
about just doing, like, a working class zero approach and letting people rig it?
Yeah,
Or,
so I mean, I can
like,
that would
just
be
do
one of
the
the options. So
plastic
like
with
I
the
can
slit?
yeah, so I mean anyone that has, wire tying tools or if you musky fish, you should have
Yeah.
crimps and wire and stuff. So like one of the options will be, hey, just give me the naked bait. Um, this rear clip, like this never gets in the way. To me, this is never a bad idea. So this will be
Mhm.
on every bait, no matter what. And you can take your wire and crimps and do whatever Frankenstein monstrosity you want to it. I'm kind of excited about that part too. I want to see what people do to it. This is such comedy right now.
Oh, are you
This
stu
is
you
comedy.
hooked?
I hooked myself on my own A rig.
Okay.
I used to sell
So
these, and I'm thinking about bringing them back as the cold water comes back. This is a stealth. This isn't my A rig itself. This is Stealth Lures,
yeah, the
awesome company run by
yeah.
a guy in Tennessee. Shout out Saxton. But these, before I got super busy with gobies and those kind of blew up, I was simultaneously working on silicone small finesse swim baits.
And those are your
Um,
smelt?
these are my smelts. Yeah, I haven't made these in quite a while, just because I mean I love them. I think they're really cool, and they do some stuff for me that other swim baits don't particularly like. The durability is like I'd say best in class of like a 3-inch little bait. Like this is it's really hard to like rig up a mob of 3-inch easy shiners on an A rig um with adequate hooks to like throw it on a heavy rod and set it. So these are like saltwater caliber hooks that you can fish on 20-pound line, and like the whole package fits in a 3-inch bait. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
um, hopefully, like for November, I think I'm gonna start selling these guys again in little 5 packs for an A rig, maybe even paired with the stealth rig.
That would be
Um,
cool.
A rig story. Um, this past May, I took my mom out on the boat for Mother's Day, and it's
Oh,
like
no.
one of her first experiences fishing. Not fishing in general, but like just
Yeah.
seeing what I'm out there doing every day. She's like, "Oh, this I
Yeah,
didn't know this is how it went. Like this is fun."
like
She's
serious
like, "Oh,
fishing,
thanks so
yeah.
much for taking me." Yeah, and then towards the end of the day, she's like, "All right, it's getting kind of cold. I'm about done." I'm like, "Great, like last cast, classic me, classic any fisherman, last cast."
Yeah.
Um, but one of my rods was like sitting loose in the boat with an A rig on it,
Oh
and she
no.
starts getting kind of she pricks herself in the ankle with one of the swim baits, and then because her foot's cold, she doesn't notice that she's hooked, and she keeps walking, and she sets the hell out of that hook like
Oh
deep
no.
into her ankle, like just buried in between like one of the tendons.
Oh
And
no.
we like I was gonna pull it out, and she's like, I think it's too close to like my nerves and tendons. Like, I don't want you to pull. Basically, we're 2.5 hours away from civilization. Like, it was an
Yeah.
hour drive to the ramp in the middle of nowhere, and then an hour run from the ramp. Um, so I'm like, I'm kind of panicked at this point. I'm like, shit, this isn't coming out of her. I don't want her to get tetanus. I don't want her to start bleeding out on the boat because I couldn't find like apparently didn't have an emergency kit, which is
Yeah.
also not my best move. Basically, I start just booking it out of there, and in that rush, totally missed this rock bar, obliterated my lower unit. Boom, 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 just dragging like 20 yards of rocks over the prop. Lost one of the prop blades.
Jeez.
Limped
This was your new
limped back
boat?
home.
'Cause
Yeah, yeah. I mean, new to me. It was still an older boat. It wasn't like
yeah,
I
but
took a
still, yeah.
$80,000 nitro and destroyed it, but
Yeah.
it was a significant expense for me. That sucked a lot. And then we get to the hospital, and the surgeon was actually the ER doctor was a fishing buddy of another guy, like one of the guys that helped me test the baits up in northern Michigan.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I fished a little bit. He's like, it's a shame I have to cut this out. This is a pretty good looking bait. What is this?
Yeah,
Like
it's
in the
kinda like
midst
I've
of
never
like
seen this.
slicing up. Yeah, there's a hilarious X-ray of like literally one of those. It's you
So
can
I
see
guess
her foot bone and then one of these like right lodged in between the ankle bones.
oh,
It
no.
was so funny.
So the real question is your mom ever gonna go fishing with you again?
Oh, she will. Yeah, yeah. She.
Yeah, okay, good.
Well, I mean, I won't drag her, but I expect that she will.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
She might.
unfortunate,
She might put like either a time or a distance limit on it. She's like, how about we go
right?
somewhere closer to home? She's like, I don't
Wear
care
some
about your 8 pound smallmouth. I'm cool with perch next door. Let's not make the
you just
drive.
gotta throw on some shin guards,
Yeah.
either like
Yeah.
hockey or soccer shin guards and yeah, just, tough it out. So collaborations, you just did a collaboration with Real Prey with a paint.
Mm-hmm.
So is that something you're thinking about doing more in the future? Is
Oh,
sending your baits
absolutely.
to
It's in the
painters?
works. Joe is one of the original, if not the first, like first or second that I know of, silicone bait makers around, and he is. It's kind of its own tangent, but what silicone is most commonly used for in like silicone art materials, it's used for Hollywood special effects, like that whole industry of like special
Okay.
chemicals and colorant stuff, and ways to like make silicone airbrushable and art quality, and like whenever they do realistic like crazy alien masks and stuff like that, or like Mission Impossible making the fake face or whatever, that's all silicone.
Hmm,
So there's a whole community of like you know world class silicone artists out there, and to my knowledge, Joe is the only one that operates in the fishing space. If you're
okay.
making realistic special effects props, that's not his job either, but he's learned the trade. So if you haven't seen anyone just watch it, like this is what here's what I'm able to do with colors, and like these catch a shit ton of fish, and they're I can do some stuff with like different flake effects and like layering of the tones to like evoke different types of fish. I mean, Joe can literally create a live fish on a canvas. So I sent him a bunch of blanks that were all just neutral color, and he just brought them to life with these gorgeous two-tone eyes. There's a little hit of like an ultraviolet on the gill plate there, and like if you ever seen a goby, like this is literally he just made a goby.
Yeah, those
Um,
are great.
these sold like fucking. I got like 40 back in the mail from him. I set aside like 10 for myself, and then I think this is probably the first batch that I sold out like in under 15 minutes or so. Um, so we're absolutely doing more. Joe's a busy guy. He's got his own baits to make, but these are going to be an ongoing thing. Hopefully, once a month, there will be a variant of, like I said, gobies come in so many different colors. This was a very middle of the road, lighter bronze copper type goby. We're going to do one of the darker ones next. Sandy in the future might do so many options. I don't know. Joe's got
Yeah,
incredible
endless.
array of paint options that he can come up with. So as long as he's happy to do them, and we're working on some other stuff too. With he might just have them on repeat, like an ongoing thing. But I didn't. I knew people would like them. I didn't know they would go quite that fast. I would have done more. But they're definitely coming back, and in different variations. And um, if you missed out, there will be more.
Nice. Yeah, those look great. So what would wouldn't even have to be like a painting, just a fun little question. What would be like your dream collaboration with someone or like
Oh,
another company?
that's really cool. Yeah, I think okay. So I've got two, I guess. One would be Great Lakes Finesse, which I don't have any particular relationship with them, but just from what they put out, both in their products and the way they talk about stuff and how they develop their products, I feel like we're really like-minded. I think they start with. I mean, they come from similar fisheries, and the way they develop things in the water and the way they approach like how the fish think, what they're feeding on, ways that they can I mean, they focus on very small baits,
Yeah,
which I do as well for a time. And I guess I also believed that big smallmouth and Great Lakes wouldn't eat big things until I feel like I made the right thing for them to eat. So I would love to do kind of like a big and small series, like with them, where it's a mix of like catching 6 pound fish on 4 pound line, and then kind of the opposite end of like catching monster fish on above average baits, like just different profiles and like the
yeah,
opposite
that
ends of
would
the
be cool.
spectrum. The kind of the same fisheries, but kind of opposite approaches, or um, maybe sizes are opposite, but still like the thought process and the uh, the way we go at the fish, I feel like is pretty similar. So that would be a really fun one for me. Outside of the fishing industry, I don't even know how my baits would work into it, but there's just there's a bunch of really cool ocean research institutes. Particularly, there's Woods Hole in the Atlantic and Mbari on the west coast.
Okay.
And Mbari is it's the research wing of the Monterey Bay Aquarium,
Hmm.
and they make all kinds of like insane like ocean exploratory robots and like unmanned submarines that go down and film species you've never seen before in the Mariana Trench.
Wow,
So
that's crazy.
yeah, so like I don't even know how this would possibly be a collaboration, but just like being able to work
Yeah,
with them in any capacity would be incredible. Like seeing a goby swim at 30,000 feet under the sea, being dragged by a
right.
submarine, that would be really cool. That's honestly, it's kind of like my in my personal career, that would be like a dream job. Would be
Yeah,
working on like cutting edge stuff that's researching the most unknown parts of the ocean. That's really inspiring to me, and I'd love to be part of that someday down the line. Who knows? I have to
yeah,
move. I don't know if I'm willing to move to the West Coast, but
right. Yeah, that would be awesome. We'll have to come up with some type of way you can work into a collaboration with them someday. What is the future a hatch match outside of the musky and the 7 and 5 inch jig
yeah,
hooks?
it's kind of up in the air. There's a couple things in the oven that I don't know whether it's kind of at a crossroads of like what can I reasonably achieve in my free time. And I think I'm looking at a couple different ways to like I'm unwilling to totally outsource everything to like straight up go pour them in PVC in China and just be totally divorced from
Yeah,
the manufacturing end, but I am looking at ways to working with
like
some
the
other companies that do similar stuff to keep them in production and like have them distributed and but kept up to my materials, my process, my standard, and like keep the bait itself exactly the same and just have it, being hopefully produced in greater numbers in a way that we can kind of push them to a broader audience. So still in the works. hopefully we can work it out, and that'll be, something that'll I can kind of just be the like the tinkerer and the inventor behind the curtain, like messing with digital designs and like making stuff work and testing it in water, and then like hopefully expanding to some other brands you might know and keeping the baits how they are and just more of them, more available.
Awesome.
And yeah.
Awesome. And then if people want to follow you, and I'll pop up your website
Yeah,
here on the bottom for them. And then you have a few Instagrams that they could check out.
pretty much all my updates at the moment are, sporadically posted to like swim bait fishing groups on Facebook, but large majority is Instagram, which is just Hatch Match Baits. That'll be where the pre-order list is announced for these, or like, hey, I'm putting up the order form for the Goliath. Um, list your color sync rate, rigging options, and I'll cap it at whatever number I decide to produce in a first run, and I commit to something like that. But all updates for like weekly drops and new colors or like restocks of like the painted ones, stuff like that. Everything's up there.
And if people want to see all of your catches that you've had, all your trophy fish,
Yeah, I've
JP,
got
JP on the water.
noteworthy stuff. Yeah, that's my personal when if it does or doesn't involve my baits. If it's memorable to me, it goes up there. I mean, I kind of force feed a lot of my baits a lot of the time just because I like throwing my stuff. But Lord knows if I'm tuna fishing or something, I'm not throwing a goby at
Right.
them. So there's all kinds of stuff up there. I live in a really um, cool part of the country where I can get to at least within a day trip. I can be in all kinds of crazy fisheries, like up into the mountains or out in the Atlantic, north, south, everywhere in between. So I do a lot of different stuff. I like to think I know what I'm doing in the Great Lakes, but out this way, I'm very much like a jack of all trades, master of none, kind of a transplant, still learning a lot of the different fisheries. But having some success here and there. I've really caught the saltwater bug. We have a really amazing fishery in the Chesapeake Bay with um,
Giant redfish.
giant. Yeah, it's really cool because it's like alternating seasons. Like you get the world's best striped bass fishing from December through early May, uh, depending where you go. Like Maryland is closed for April and May, but you can catch them in Virginia and stuff. And then as the striper begin to leave, you get the world's best redfish fishery swimming right back in, and they're like passing each other. So the bay is constantly full of some of the coolest game fish in the country, and it's a lot of water, and it's daunting if you're a kayak guy who's only been here 4 or 5 years and still learning some of the nooks and crannies. But it's blind squirrel finds a nut. Caught some big ones. It's been a lot of fun.
Right. Well, if anybody can do it, I think you can do it with your
It's hard, yeah.
innovation
If
and
you just hop on a buddy's boat and he goes and finds the fish, and you get to pretend that you caught him.
right.
Yeah,
Awesome, dude. Well, good luck up here. You're going to be going quite a bit north of me, but hopefully
yeah,
we'll see some big musky catches on your socials soon here.
yeah. I mean, it's gonna pour rain the whole time. I got pretty hosed with that, but
Yeah.
it should be beautiful regardless, as long as the rain doesn't knock all the leaves off the trees. I try to time it with like peak fall foliage. I'm a little bit late, but should be cool. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
it should be. It'll be fun. All
Yeah,
right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. It was great talking to you, learning a little bit more about you, and letting people know what Hatch Match Baits is all about.
thanks for having me.
Absolutely crushed the Hatch Match. The Godzilla Goby. This is the line through version. Check that out. I was reeling it up quick too, and he crushed it while it was moving. I had it bouncing on the bottom for a while, and then I just jigged it a bit, and he came up and smashed it. Look at that. Unbelievable.